We often hear it shouted from podiums and across debate stages. It is impossible to earn $1 billion. The assumption is that reaching that level of wealth absolutely requires exploiting people, cheating the system, or doing something underhanded. But if we strip away the political ideology, the emotional arguments, and the sheer noise of those debates, we can look closely at the raw data and the pure math behind extreme wealth creation. Consider a real-world test case. Right now, there is a startup founder whose company is growing at a staggering rate of 93% every single month. Because of that consistent 93% monthly growth, her net worth is scaling at the exact same exponential rate, and she hasn't exploited anyone to get there. Her trajectory is driven entirely by the fact that her users genuinely love what she built, so they tell their friends. To test the math on this, imagine she starts with a valuation of $2 million. How long would it take for that $2 million to multiply 500 times and hit $1 billion, growing at 93% a month? The answer lies in a straightforward calculation. You take the log base 1.93 of 500. That calculation equals 9.45. It takes under 9.5 months of 93% growth to turn a couple $1 million into $1 billion. $1 billion doesn't inherently represent a moral failing or proof of a rigged game. It is simply the natural, inevitable mathematical outcome of exponential growth acting on a highly successful idea. Extreme wealth relies on two core variables: growth rate and market size. If a company sustains a 15% monthly growth rate for 5 years, a $10,000 monthly revenue scales up 4,000 times. The founder mathematically becomes a billionaire. This exposes the logical flaw in the cheating argument. You cannot possibly trick an entire market into existing. For a company to grow 4,000 times over, the underlying consumer demand has to be strictly real. Since no one can artificially inflate a market size, the only variable a founder actually controls is the growth rate, and that is achieved exclusively by making a product so useful that people naturally tell their friends to use it. Hitting consistent 15% monthly scalable growth is impossible to fake. You have to build immense, genuine value for the consumer. The great challenge of a market economy is that it is incredibly difficult to discover a massive, satisfiable need that someone else hasn't already noticed and filled. If you sit down and consciously try to invent a billion-dollar company, you will likely fail. Your brain will automatically filter out the strange outlier ideas because they seem too risky, even though those outliers are exactly where the hidden value lies. The biggest ideas always sound terrible at first. Consider the pitch for a platform designed entirely for college undergrads to stalk each other online, or the idea of asking strangers to pay money so they can sleep on an airbed on someone's living room floor. Then there is the most preposterous example, a single guy strapping a camera to his head to live stream every waking moment of his life. Despite sounding absurd, that project accurately predicted a massive future demand for live streaming, eventually evolving into Twitch. The mechanism for finding an exponential idea is rarely formal market research. It usually comes from building random, cool projects for yourself and your friends. Your own obscure early adopter needs often predict what the rest of the market will want a decade later. The math we have just walked through provides a complete explanation for how billions are earned without cheating. In the equation for extreme wealth, there are only two variables: growth and market size. There is no exploitation variable required to make the books balance. In fact, for modern technology startups, exploitation is a liability. It creates a friction that destroys the organic word of mouth necessary to sustain that 15% monthly growth rate. If that growth depends entirely on users being happy enough to tell their friends, then the founder's job is to understand those users. To hit those numbers, you have to understand a group of people so deeply that you can make their lives better. That deep understanding is the functional definition of empathy. We have to base our understanding of wealth on how the world actually operates today, rather than relying on movies or political theories that were written for a different era. When the ideology is stripped away, we see that building for others is what actually powers the variables of the equation. Empathy is what translates a good idea into the exponential growth of $1 billion. If you find this valuable, please make sure to follow and subscribe. Rise, raise.